What's up, party people? My name is Sunny Ray. This is the Sunny Ray Show. We're back yet again. Today's gonna be a wild day. I've got a whole bunch of really interesting back-to-back interviews lined up. The first gentleman, his name is Boyd Lowry. He's the owner and CEO of First Light Home Care. He's spent 14 years running the Bergen County territory of First Light Home Care, a national franchise network of roughly 325 territories and 300 owners. It's my honor to invite Boyd onto the show. How are you, Boyd?
I'm doing great. Nice to meet you, Ray. Sunny.
Nice to meet you as well. I like to start just right into the deep end. What is First Light Home Care? Why should the listener care? What are you building? I was touched by your story last week when we met, but yeah, if you don't mind sharing, let's kick off there.
First Light Home Care is it's a franchise. I started this about 14 years ago, looking for my um, next thing to do. And in service, I care for the seniors as they age in place, and we help them with caregivers, putting them to help them with their ADLs, their activities of daily living, and we manage all the tasks that go with that so that the caregivers can show compassion and love as people kind of go through the final stages of uh, their lives. And it's a very compassionate and emotional filled kind of field. And my background tends to lead into that. So I've done operations, worked in operations all my life. So using my background in the Marine Corps as well as HR and technology, I've always been able to leverage the services of people to optimize that. And I've used some recent things to make it even better, I think, uh, over these 14 years, just adapting constantly. Um,
I love that. Great start. So, Boyd, I love to talk about obviously business and money and tech, but my favorite thing is people, right? Like, none of this would actually happen if it wasn't for you one day waking up and deciding to make it come true. But take us back, right? So your father was a minister, your mother was a nurse, and you served in the Marines. What did those three things teach you that shows up in how you run a care company?
oh wow, those are my three kind of pillars there. So yeah, my father is a minister. He served in the Asia territory, maintaining missionaries all over Asia, and then made sure they had funds and money. And as I was growing up, I struggled in school and saw like the same kinds of service type things in my life, and sought that out as I kind of tried to find purpose. My mother, a nurse, she went back to school, got her RN, and started just driving around taking care of people, kind of what we're doing now in home care. And so I decided to go in the Marine Corps, open contract, ended up in the front lines of the infantry, serving in two military conflicts, the invasion of Grenada and then the multinational peacekeeping force in Beirut, Lebanon. And so service is all three of those pieces. And how we serve people is giving back and giving of ourselves and finding purpose in that. And that is what's probably my driving force, that which gives me value and purpose. And then I apply that to my love for business, which is just trying to figure out problems and how to be more efficient and solve things. And so that's why I studied HR. Human resources was more of uh, an avenue of working with people in different industries to give quality of life. Here, I actually give quality of life in people as they are entering their final stages, and then we care for all the home care caregivers who are usually living paycheck to paycheck, and you're trying to help them build their quality of life, closure, purpose, um, funds, things to make their lives work. And the last pillar, of course, is brain health, education, brain awareness, and that's another piece that we incorporate in our life in our style of care, which is because dementia is one of the fastest growing areas of care. There's a need for education in that field, and we do quite a bit of that with different things I've done over the 14 years running a senior center as well as part of my home care business.
Fascinating. And Bauda, but Boyd, you have worked across operations, management, and service work, right, in several industries. What made home care the one you stayed in for 14 years?
Ah, yeah. Well, well, I used to say that I last about 4 years at any job. So it was like everywhere I went, I'd burn out and move on. Maybe that was just I always needed more challenges, more opportunity. The thing about home care is that it pretty much changes about every 6 months. Your competition, your compliance, your caregivers, your needs, they shift constantly. And uh, you know, a competitor may come in, take all your resources of caregivers, pay them more money, they leave you for a short time, and then you're like trying to figure out how to scramble. You might have a compliance law that comes from the New Jersey's a very compliant, a regulated state, just messes up all our planning and stuff like that, adds to our labor and oversight, and we have to focus staff on that. You start looking at vendors and how to manage those vendors so that you can optimize your business within the changes that are going on in real time around you. And then something goes back, and then marketing changes, and you're really doing every field, every functional part of business changing regularly. You're doing working in marketing, working in compliance, working in staffing, onboarding, and then sales, face to face, customer. I work on writing stories and building those for hyper local marketing. I do things like this with talking to people so that I can share what our mission is and what the purpose is in order to build awareness. So you do everything in this building business. So I haven't had to change
Mhm.
careers. I'm right here.
So 14 years, I guess, like all of Bergen County with 60 plus people self-funded the whole way. What did turning down outside capital cost you, and what did it buy you?
Nope. Um, Turning down outside capital. I've usually been able to leverage most of my funds and stuff just just to make things happen. So outside capital, there's probably I funded most of this through my own resource and stuff. I have had four other businesses that I've run and started. So I've been able to build that up and create access within my resources in order to grow and manage because like during the ups and downs it is difficult, so you do have to create a cushion. Sometimes you have to give up salary and manage your resources accordingly, but managing your funds and your resources is always a ongoing challenge in business as well, another functional area of business. So
And you're one owner inside of a 325 territory network. Like, what does a franchise give you, and where does it get in your way?
no. Uh, what does it give you? It gives you a template, a model in which to run a business that's already has a proven record. So I didn't want to invent a business. I already did that. I wanted to run a business, and I wanted to work with people and find ways of supporting a community. So I saw the franchise as an optimal solution for that. And they have accomplished that. We have the national alliances, we have groups, we have new owners that come in, we have a community that we have conferences, we gather, we talk about ways of optimizing things. And so like you're talking to other people about solutions like AI coming into the industry and changing everything again. and you're trying to say, okay, so how am I going to make this work? And somebody will say, well, I tried this, I tried that, and now you have a community of people experimenting with different fields, but you also have the franchise leveraging those things and helping us those. The hard part is sometimes they regulate certain parts of the businesses that grow the best. One is the website is always my Achilles heel. They want to control that because we all have one main domain, and that domain is controlled by their resources, and usually that's your biggest marketing tool. So it is kind of
I,
an obstacle
I kind
there.
of missed that. Sorry, who controls your domain or your website?
The domain, since it's a company of so many little companies,
Right, right.
the domain firstlighthomecare.com is
Yeah,
controlled by the franchise. So we
got
are microsites under them.
got it.
And so you want to make sure your compliance, your rules, your regulation, your things meeting all the standards so that one owner can't ruin it for the rest of the owners.
Got it. Okay, I
Block
see
off
what
a
you're saying.
Google
Yeah,
site or something.
yeah, yeah.
So they actually control that, but then we don't have the flexibility to actually make the sites work the way we want to sometimes from new vendors. You're trying
Yeah, yeah,
something new and you get stuck. So
yeah.
that's the
Are you
biggest.
allowed to have landing pages or no?
We can do landing pages and all that, but it does create
Right, right, right. I get
an
it.
ongoing dilemma because of the
Well,
oversight.
what's the part of this business that nobody outside it understands?
I'm sorry.
What's the part of this business that nobody outside of it understands?
Hmm. Ah, hmm. What does nobody understand? The thing about home care is that people don't pay attention to it until they absolutely need it. So, so you could educate, you could promote, you could create some kind of awareness all the time, but people don't pay attention, they don't hear it until their loved one has an accident and falls. And then all of a sudden they're sitting at the hospital and they're on their phone and they're calling and they're on the internet and they're searching and and they need answers. And that's where I find the greatest opportunity, the greatest growth, the greatest place to be, because that's where I'm the trusted advisor. I can answer your questions. I can guide you in the right direction. I can make suggestions. I can talk about alternate things in the future, or what's going on now, or what's going to happen the next 20 days of Medicare. And then try and look at other ways like veterans, like how we can support our veterans. As a veteran myself, I can communicate how those services are available for them for free, and we can leverage those things. And there's so much cost in home care. That's another thing that people don't realize, that there is no parachute. There is no that our government has you go broke in order to get care. So you are paying for it. And people don't realize that until they get to the point they're like, well, how am I going to pay for this loved one, this caregiver to come and take care of my loved one, my mother who needs somebody around the clock. And then all of a sudden you're like trying to figure that out. And there are ways of reducing the burden, but you need somebody to guide you, and you don't find those people until you absolutely need to.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Boyd, you brought AI, right, into scheduling, staffing, and inbound calls. So I guess what broke first and what did you have to kind of like rip out to make all this work?
So what broke first is last year, just compliance came in. They came in, they said this has to be done this way, this has to be done that way. Everything kind of came to oh, I have to change the way I do a bunch of things that I thought were pretty much correct. And in that process, we lost clients and then we lost staff, and and I had to restructure the company. I let go some of my nonprofit, my philanthropic work, and that was very hard to do. And that was more of our brain health, our brain awareness, brain education stuff that we were doing. And I was missing the things that I also enjoy about this business, which is serving others and finding ways to educate and to promote that awareness. And I was basically sitting there like, I can't fix this. ended up starting all over in scratch. So I went back to the drawing board as a Marine. There is no failure, adapt and overcome. And that's where I said, I was actually talking to two AI vendors at the time. And I said, can you help me out? And literally they came out within 24 hours, turned on some tools and AI, and all of a sudden we were staffing and I had a whole employee running my operations behind me. With and then while I was hiring these two people, and as they came in, I had that cushion, and all of a sudden that burden just was released. And you were like, oh my gosh, this is the future. All of a sudden I can actually focus on the customer again. I can make changes again. I can take all that compliance and automate that. I can take all that um, uh, phone answering, the call outs and stuff, and just try to get those automated. And then there's so many opportunities in AI to take that busy work and optimize your company by releasing those things. And then guess what? Now we get to do why we started this in the first place. Every home care owner started this to serve and to give back and to show love and compassion. Father's a minister, my mother's a nurse, I served in the Marines. That's the core principle. That's the value. That's what we could start doing. All of a sudden, I'm spending time with the clients. I'm spending time with the caregivers. We're doing more training again, more oversight. We're providing services that we couldn't provide before because I now have time to make sure we're in compliance through these automated tools. AI turned the company around, and then empowered my staff. And now I have a career path. I have a focus where I can leverage my caregivers in a way that is optimizing my company and my future and in this business. I'm extremely excited by the opportunities that AI have brought to my
You
business.
you and me both. You and me both. That's probably one of the most like most exciting answers I've heard of like why AI. And because like I'm not gonna lie, I even bring investors on this call and a lot of entrepreneurs, and usually it's gloom and doom. But here you are in the front lines helping the people who need it most, saying that you're able to live your purpose more fully. You're able to be with people instead of in front of maybe behind paperwork or whatever it might be, right? So I love that. So your line is that AI is how customer service comes back to your employees, right?
Yes.
Now, not how it leaves. So most people in your industry hear the opposite. So can you lean in a bit more? Can you make the case for that? Like, what are people missing?
Oh, well, when you think about the functional businesses of a business, you're thinking about your HR, you're thinking about your legal compliance, your scheduling, your staffing, your recruiting. You're thinking about all those tasks that have to be done. The phone has to be answered, and people have to be made aware of. All those things um, are just creating more and more busy work, and it's taking away from the passion. And so now we're looking at ways of advancing that. And as somebody that always is looking for ways of giving back or serving, it's this is giving me that tool. Operationally, I think is where my passion is over the years. So I mean, I traveled the world fixing industrial printers. I mean, after serving in the Marines, I then studied HR, and then I got into that for 10 years, recruiter, staff, all that. And then I changed careers completely and did IT and integration and software. I ran programmers and teams to do system design work and integrated products, and then did all these very interesting things. I wrote programs and trained people on different ways in warehousing. Then started a whole business. I mean, this is like giving us the tools back that I used to sit on the phone and in a warehouse on the top of miles of conveyor fixing a scanner, and by calling the help desk. You don't do that anymore. Now you go on YouTube and you look it up, and which is still there, but it's the next thing is going to be AI. AI is going. You're sitting there on ChatGPT and these other tools, and you're asking them how to solve this problem. They're guiding you in the direction, but then you have to do the extra work, and now all of a sudden you're efficient again. You're. I mean, this is evolution. This is why in the business world, why being an entrepreneur is so exciting, because you're figuring things out, but then solving problems and seeing paths that nobody else saw. And that's where I get my passion. That's where I get my drive. Um, so, you know, then going back and reverting back from this sterile warehousing IT, which is hands-on stuff, to back to people and everything like that. I got back to what I originally wanted to do, which was serving people. And so I believe that the next thing is that these agentic AI and tools are going to grow more, and we're going to have another workforce. I mean, this is actually written up by one of the owners of the AI vendor. He talks about a new workforce, and that new workforce is going to be that AI agentic AIs and these virtual assistants and stuff like that to empower us to do more with less, um, and that's going to make our industries, our companies, more customers focused. It's going to be a whiplash effect where we're going to come back to actually serving people, because all this oversight and busy work and compliance and protection is going to be somehow kind of become somehow reined in somehow.
Hmm.
That's probably a little too out there, but
I like it. I like it. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Boyd, home care is a decision that families make in a crisis, right? After an accident, never usually before it. How do you get on their radar while everything is still fine?
Oh, well, so I usually talk about my three avatars, which is beginning of care, which is, just getting started, 12 hours. You know, somebody says, hey, my mother's forgetting things, or my father was wandering, and or lost their keys and couldn't find their car, and all of a sudden they say, well, what do we do? So you want to kind of start at that entry level, get them aware of what home care is, and then start educating. And as an educator, that's the primary piece. The next stage, of course, something traumatic happens. That's the fall or whatever. Um, the there's an accident or whatever, and now they need 12 hours of care all night long, but they'll try and get them back to independence, which is what Medicare is. And then the worst case scenario is just a live-in. But some people have funds and money and they can pay for the live-in. And really, from a dementia standpoint, that's your best solution. So those are your three stages. So, and to start care in the beginning stage and to work through all three stages, educating that piece and finding ways of getting people to see that they will at some point need to help their loved one in one of those stages to get, and wherever they start will give them beginning. So we'll give this opportunity of care. So how do we educate that? And in my opinion, that's every avenue of marketing you can possibly think of. Um, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a hyper local magazine, whether it's a social media post, or just a gathering, or going to senior centers and talking to networkers, or building referral sources. Referral sources is another outreach that you want to address and build on. And referral sources are those hospitals and rehabs and SNFs that actually have people at those other later stages that they're referring out. So you're trying to build all those pieces.
Boy, what happens to this industry if the AI native operators win, and what happens to the ones who do not move?
Uh, hmm, ooh, I think it's a necessity. I think it's going to be more of a necessity in the next 6 months to a year to move. I think that that's inevitable. I think that you could be fall behind if you're not adding some component of this.
Yeah.
And if you fall behind in business, and we all know what that means. You know,
Yeah. It's ironic though. It's like more AI means more human, right? It's like awesome. Okay.
that's that's where I think it will bring us, and I think I have more optimistic view of our future than a pessimistic view. So AI is not necessarily going to take away, and I believe that's always been historically with changes. The problem that's mostly often written about when somebody talked about have an optimistic perspective of AI is that we're not going to be able to adapt fast enough. So, so this is your opportunity. Start figuring it out and learning it now. Don't wait. So,
And with, hospitals and rehab centers are essentially the highest value referral relationships in your world, right? So what actually earns one?
get a hospital or a relationship, you have to build relationships with them. Um, how do we do that? We go and find ways of communicating. And LinkedIn is good for that. To talk about these ideas and sourcing and the needs, but also to represent yourself in a way that shows them that their client, the person, their patient, when they release them, is going to a place where they will actually get the care that they deserve and need. So if a hospital feels that the next step is going to be a value add partner like home care, they're going to be more likely to refer. If it's a rehab and they're doing that some of these rehabs have built in their own home care, which creates a problem within the industry, but it's truly the family that has to make that choice. And that family needs to look for somebody that believes in how it has an infrastructure that can deliver on what they believe is right, which I believe is service and community and faith and anything that gives a better value in the home. As we start to look at some of our hospitals and rehabs, they're not necessarily safe places. We learned that during COVID. You know, the you know the super bugs and all those are out there. Your best place is at home. Um, and home care can handle all levels of care. When it really gets serious, something that can't be handled, there's not a whole lot down there at that end stage. It's when it's an equipment or something like that. And if somebody's used their oxygen at the highest level for 6 months too long, and now they can only be on a ventilator in a hospital, that's because there wasn't a caregiver sitting there saying, "Don't turn it up over this level." The doctor said, "Don't do that." It's like, you can do all these things, but you need oversight, you need awareness, you need services, you need partners, and that partner, what I would say, is First Light Home Care. Um, and
Cool. Well, boy, help me land the plane. What are you building towards that you have not said out loud yet? Is there anything that you're cooking up that's coming in the future or
I want to do more speaking.
nice.
So I'm looking into speaking engagements, things like that. I'm looking for other opportunities. My company's growing well. I've got a great staff. We're going to land that, grow that. I have this vision, which I've explained. So we're we're flying high right now. So let's keep it going.
Well, I love it, man. This has been one of my favorite interviews this week. So thank you so much, boy. I really appreciate it. Where do people learn more about you? I think LinkedIn is where you do a little bit of
Uh,
writing, but where else? And maybe share the website. And
LinkedIn, you
I'll,
can go to our microsite, firstlighthomecare.com, put in the zip code for Glen Rock or Bergen County. If you live in this area, right outside of Manhattan, New York, you can find us online, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Threads, whatever, all those social medias that we can post, YouTube. Look for my articles, my blog, not, yeah, my blog through the website, and my Glen Rock Living, all those things. Anything I can get out there to build awareness, I'm here.
love it. Well, thank you so much, Boy, for sharing. And yeah, this is a really important work that you're doing. So I'm grateful that people like you are out there and your story is beautiful. So thank you so much. Thank you all for tuning in, and stay tuned. I've got another interview coming up in about 5 minutes. Cheers.
Thank you, Sonny.
Hey, Boyd, hang out for 1 minute. I'll bring the stream to